Hello everybody. It is Sunday the 20th of July. I want to talk about the way the devil lies, what he's actually doing, how his lies are created. And in the end I also want to talk about building an ArK. To take a truth to the other side of the chaos, and what truth is it you would actually take, and how would you take it? But let me start with the way the devil lies. I've again just watched a video of ArK. He's the one that's triggering me at the moment badly, and he had this chart depiction of the sitting Buddha and a sitting Buddha and the chakras inside of the form. And he had labeled the chakras, giving them meaning. So he labeled the root chakra, he labeled that insanity. And then the crown chakra as the singularity. And then in between, going upward, he had ignorance, empowerment. So from insanity, the root chakra, he had ignorance, empowerment, awakening, illumination, mastery, and then the singularity. And that we are on our way, obviously, to the singularity. Yeah? Right. And I was looking at that, and I saw what I saw, because I am, to a very high degree, in the Hermetic thinking. I saw the opposite poles of the crown chakra and the root chakra and everything in between. And then I actually left that in the comments, if you were to take this depiction that he had and the way he had labeled the things as if you were to apply the Hermetic principle of polarity to that, the principle says everything is dual. Duality is the truth. So everything is true, dual, everything has poles, everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature but different in degrees. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled. So, if you were to apply that principle to his depiction, then he had labeled the root chakra as insanity, and then the opposite poles, the root chakra and the crown chakra, would be identical in nature but different in degrees. So if he labels the root chakra as insanity, then the crown chakra would be identical in nature, which I'm actually going with, big style. Just to think about that. There is a different thinking in this world. Yeah, it's not where black and white are not clear cut, and not one is the truth and the other is the light. But they are opposites that are identical in nature. And the truth is in the middle. That was the Hermetic thinking. The truth is in the coming together of two parts, where both the good and the bad give its knowledge. And the truth, the real truth, is a half-truth between the two. You cannot ignore one half and say you know the truth. You need to look at the angles that make up the truth. It's not just one thing. But that is the way the devil lies. the devil will speak in terms of black and white and making a choice. The devil speaks in terms of good and bad and make a choice. The devil does, and it is what's happening at the moment, where if you see this whole, lower nature, higher nature, and you're supposed to cut yourself off in the middle somehow because the upper half is the only truth. That is the devil's lie. The duality is the truth. Yeah, everybody shouting, we're going non-dual, we're going into enlightenment, we're going just the upper half. It will lead to insanity. It will lead to not seeing the fullness of the truth, which is made up of two halves. It is a duality. It contains good and bad. And you cannot get away from it because that is reality. Yeah? What is outside of reality? Ignorance and insanity. That is what is outside of this matrix. Outside of the duality. Ignorance and insanity. But as I say, that is how the devil lies. It divides you from the fullness of the truth. And because his lies obviously contain part of the truth that you will recognize, and you will follow that. But as I said, you're cutting yourself in half. You're leaving half of the truth, half of the duality behind. You're not seeing the full picture. That is how the devil lies, by dividing the truth, which is a duality. Now let me come to building an ArK, because just as I was watching all this and I was just sat on my doorstep with me cup of coffee and me fag, and it came to me, if this world is falling apart, what truth would you take with you? There was this old film of the time machine, the old film of the time machine, where in the end he obviously goes back to the future to stay there, and he had taken 3 books with him, and it was not said in the film which books he had taken. And it was really a question, which books would you take to rebuild a civilization after the collapse? What truth, what knowledge would you take with you to become the foundation of a new civilization? I think in some way the ancients that buried their knowledge, that is what they did, because their civilization, their world was falling apart around them, it was being destroyed, and they buried their knowledge, which was basically the foundation of what they thought they were. That was their truth. And they buried the knowledge that at some point after the collapse and after the destruction, somebody would find that knowledge to rebuild that civilization, based on their knowledge. That was the idea. It was the preservation of knowledge. So here comes the question, if everything collapses, what knowledge would you keep within you? And that is really keeping it within you. I wouldn't bury it somewhere. But keep within you to take past the chaos, to rebuild. I say I wouldn't bury it, I would say we are living books. Yeah? We are living knowledge. And then to preserve that knowledge, it would be orally. to pass it on to your children, or to groups of people that are around you, that will keep the knowledge alive within themselves. And I say passing it on orally in secret if you have to, and you most likely will have to. Because there might be another truth ruling in this world that will destroy you. So here's the question. What knowledge would you take across? Now, for myself, I would, just speaking for myself, just as an example, I would take the Ten Commandments, most certainly. I think I would take the Hermetic principles, because I think they were very clear, and to me they're very true. As a foundational knowledge on which to build. Right now, people build their perception of themselves on devil's lies. I say so. They're building their own identity on the devil's lie. They are not truth. In the devil there never was any truth. He's always divided the truth. He always has divided the duality into polarities, which are then at war with one another. And that is not how it should be. It is a coming together of the opposites that will create the truth somewhere in the middle. And that is the real truth that takes into account both sides. Yeah, here's the question. If everything falls apart around us now, if knowledge is destroyed, if knowledge is oppressed, if the lie becomes the only truth, what knowledge would you keep within yourself to try and bring it through the darkness, through the destruction, to rebuild on the other side? It's a question. Ask yourself that. Anyway, here, I leave it at that for today. And I talk to you again soon. Bye.